All right, we are live. We are here in beautiful sunny Florida, and today, fight fans, we are live, and we're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 110, Lewis versus Hunt in Auckland, New Zealand, man. So, man, awesome main event. Going to be tons of violence in that fight. We'll see. Definitely, I think without a doubt, we're going to see some kind of knockout in that fight. It goes 5 rounds as well. I completely forgot that main event was 5 rounds. I don't know why, but made me a little bit more confident and doesn't go the distance and won't start round 4 and 5 props, stuff like that. But man, the rest of this card, it's man, and I'm usually pretty high on like these lower level cards that most people will talk crap on, but I don't think this card is great at all. I mean, there's a couple gems in the rough here, but overall not the greatest card, but love it from a betting perspective, man. Gotta know how I am by now. I did manage to find some value in my opinion, so I do have 10 bets up, and man, I'm excited to talk these fights either way. You know how I am. I'm a hardcore nut, and I'm excited to talk these fights, man. So, yeah, gonna be breaking down the whole 12 fight card here, and doing this live for the first time. Obviously, I do my roundtable videos live, but I finally decided to do one of these solo videos live, just because it's like a little easier for me, and Jesus Christ, losing my train of thought. Yeah, it's a little easier for me, and I feel comfortable enough to the point where I feel like I can do these live. Yeah, man, like early on, like when I did this, I started this in September, the whole YouTube thing, and back then I would do these videos in like 2 or 3 takes just because I wasn't comfortable with how I was doing, but now it's like a walk in the park now, man. I fucking love doing these things, and now I'm doing them live, and hopefully I can get some of you guys to talk in the chat here. I got 5 people in here now. Fire up that live chat, guys. Appreciate you being in here, and I'll try to interact when I'm done talking these fights, but nonetheless, without saying, I did profit exactly one. What was it? Shit, 1.03 units at UFC 212. Profit's a profit, but of course I'd like to do a little bit better than that. Vitor really came through for me, and it's funny because I was kind of kicking myself for not just betting the Vitor in the distance, but he wins a decision, man. So he did come through for me there. So, man, yeah, let's just get right into this card, man. So, first fight of the night, we got Thibault Gouti minus 110 taking on Maestro Dong Hyun Kim minus 110. So, even money fight here, man. And I have to say, definitely disagree, man. I really wish I would have waited here. I am solid on Maestro Dong Hyun Kim here. Simply, there's a few reasons I feel solid enough to put a unit on him in a parlay with somebody later in the card. Thibault Gouti, if you want to count the Ultimate Fighter loss, he is 0-4 in the UFC. Dong Hyun Kim has showed that he can pick up a victory in the UFC. Last time out, beat Brendan O'Reilly, he's a jobber to say the least, but he's a tough dude. So man, Thibault, his 2 weaknesses are his takedown defense and his chin. And we know 2 things about Dong Hyun Kim, man. The dude can wrestle and the dude can crack. So I just think it's an overall great stylistic matchup for old Dong Hyun Kim here. And yeah, man. So I got him in a 1-unit parlay with somebody later in the card. So my official prediction, I'll say Dong Hyun Kim via 2nd round submission because I think he cracks Gouti. Gouti can't really get anything off. He starts taking them down, and we know about that sub defense as well. I think Dong Hyun Kim can ground and pound or submit him. I'll say late in the 2nd round. So moving on here, got a women's fight that I just recently made a bet on like less than 20 minutes ago. So we got JJ Aldrich minus 230 taking on Chan Mi Jeon plus 190. And I see a couple sharp people out there making some bets on the South Korean here, but I could not disagree more with that. I think this is JJ Aldrich all day. really confident here, man. And a lot of people say that the experience level is about the same. Jeon is 5-0, JJ is 4-2. But what a lot of people won't do, they won't do the full research here. JJ Aldrich has a amateur record of 7-4. She's got 2 fights in the Tough House, so 11, 13, 6. So 19 fights altogether for JJ Aldrich, and I hope I did my math right there. Jesus Christ. But, man, the other thing about Chan Mi Jeon, the 5 fights she did have, her first 4 fights were against women who were 0-0, women who have never fought before. And then her last win, she did get a TKO victory in the first round over a woman who is 19-22. So, man, this is just JJ all day for me, man. I feel like she's fought the way better competition. She's got way more experience. The little I did see of Jeon, I think JJ has a huge grappling edge. I do think she's better on the feet as well. I think she's better everywhere. I like her a lot, man, and the only reason I did stay away from it initially, but finally changed my mind, just because these low-level chick fights have really been stinging me lately, but I'm solid on this one, man. I really like JJ. I think this South Korean girl's not going to have much of anything for her. And another thing, man. Girl's 19 years old, and I do think she'll learn a lot in this fight, and she could have a future, but I think 19 years old, UFC debut, hasn't fought anybody the caliber of JJ Aldrich. I think this is going to be a tough out for her. So I'm going to go with JJ, and I think she gets a sub, man. I'm going to go with JJ Aldrich via I'll say a late first, second round submission win. And I got her in a 1-unit parlay. So I got the fight order all crapped out. And I'm doing this one a little bit more laid back, guys. So not going to be the most professional shit right here. So moving on to my second most confident pick of the card here, man. We got Zach Ottow minus 335 taking on Kichi Kunimoto plus 275. So the thing about Kichi here, man, he has not fought since it was the Benson Henderson versus Brandon Thatch card all the way back in February 2015. So it's been a while for this guy. And the thing I'll say about guys that come off long layoffs and injuries, I think the young guys like Ally Quinta, just young guys, I think they can come back from it, no problem. But Kichi Kunimoto, 36 years old, I don't think he was very good at all to begin with. Dude went to split decision with Richard Walsh in a fight I thought he lost, man. But man, I like Zach. There's a lot of things to like about Zach Ottow. You can say what you want about Josh Berkman this late into his career. He's kind of done, but to come in short notice against a very experienced guy like Josh Berkman and get the win, I think that's impressive, man. And he went to split decision with Sergio Moraes in his last fight. I thought he beat Sergio Moraes. I had a bet on him there. But Sergio is a tough guy too, so that's impressive as well. I think Ottow, he's a very big, brutish guy. I think he's going to be able to bully around Kunimoto here for the better part of 3 rounds. If not, get that finish, because the majority of his wins are via finish, and he's beat some guys outside the UFC that I think more highly of than I do of Kichi Kunimoto. So my official prediction is a 30-27 for Zach Ottow, but a finish wouldn't surprise me here in the slightest. And I do have a total of 2.5 units riding on Zach Ottow here. I got him in a 1.5 unit parlay with somebody later in the card, and I got him in a 1 unit parlay with a prop later in the card. So pretty solid in Zach Ottow here. He is my second most solid pick of the card. So moving on here, man, we got Dominique Steele minus 160 taking on Luke Jumeau plus 140. And initially going into tape study of this fight, I was looking at give me a sec, guys. Sorry about that. I was originally looking at Luke Jumeau. Just because Dominique Steele, he's got chin issues, and Jumeau, he's got a bunch of knockouts on his record. So just looking at that alone, home country guy, I was looking at an underdog play on Luke Jumeau, but After tape study, I think the dude, he's got questionable takedown defense. Dominic Steele, he's a tough guy. He's shown that he can go through wars in the UFC. Very tough fight with Danny Roberts. And he's shown that he's got a good work ethic. He's a tough guy. Just the chin is it's tough, man. So overall, I think Dominic Steele should go out there and win a wrestling-based decision here. But man, I can't trust them with a bet just because of that chin. Jumeau, home country. Jumeau's got knockout wins. Jumeau comes to fight. So this fight is just a big old pass for me, man. But like I said, going with Dominic Steele here via a wrestling-based decision. But definitely a pass on this fight. So moving on here, man, we got Jeon Moraga minus 160 taking on Askan Mokhtarian plus 140. Man, I was, and like most people, I was very unimpressed with Askan Mokhtarian and the tape study I did for him. I think he's got some unorthodox striking. I think he can piece up some very low-level guys. But Jeon Moraga, he, of course, is definitely on the downward slope in his career, lost 3 straight. But the guys he's losing against like specialists, guys that like could really strike him up, like Sergio Pettis and who's the other guy that outstruck him over 3 rounds? Benavidez, Jesus. So Benavidez and Pettis were able to outstrike him over the course of 3 rounds. Mateus Nicolau was able to use his great jiu-jitsu. Askan Mokhtarian, he doesn't really do anything too special. I don't think he can I don't think he can do much with Jeon Moraga here. I think Jeon Moraga is I think he's a tough enough guy. He's got the experience edge, and he's probably better everywhere here, man. So I like the line on Jeon Moraga. So I do have Jeon Moraga in a 1-unit parlay with a prop later in the card. I think he can outstrike the guy. I think he can take the guy down, maybe even submit him. My official prediction, I'm going to go with Jeon Moraga, late 2nd round, early 3rd round submission here. I think it's just going to be too much for Askan here in his debut. And another thing, man, I mean, I know Jeon Moraga is no spring chicken as well, but Askan Mokhtarian, for a flyweight, he's a little long in the tooth for to be making his debut. He's 31 years old. Sorry, guys, I just had to fight off a sneeze real quick. But yeah, I like Jeon Moraga here. I think he's the way more experienced guy. Fought way higher level. I think he's going to be able to shut the home country guy down here in his debut. So solid on Jeon Moraga. Got him in a 1-unit parlay. So moving on here, we got Vince from Hell Pichel plus 100 taking on Damian Brown minus 120. And I like Damian Brown a lot, man. He's a really cool guy. Shout out to Dan Levy of Half the Battle. Definitely go check out his podcast. He does interviews with Damian Brown from time to time. Did one recently, and I like what Damian Brown said about the confidence of his wrestling here, because that's going to be Vince Pichel's route to victory here is the wrestling. So I like that Damian Brown's confident in the wrestling. But I think Damian Brown can go out here and outstrike Pichel over the course of 3 rounds. I think Pichel, he's been – I know I just talked about the layoff of Kichi Kunimoto, but it's been even longer since Vince Pichel has been in the octagon. Like I said, I don't think these old guys can recover from the long layoffs. Vince Pichel is 34 years old. Damian Brown comes to fight. I think Vince Pichel is in for a very hard return fight here against a guy in his home country, guy that comes to fight, a guy that had a pretty impressive win last time out. So I like Damian Brown to stuff the takedowns here, maybe even land some of his own, but for the most part, outstrike Vince Pichel here over the course of 3 rounds. And I do have a couple of plays here in this fight, man. I have 1 unit on Damian Brown at minus 105 to 1.95 units. And then I have not Vince Pichel wins in the distance. So not Pichel in the distance parlayed with JJ Aldrich. That's 1.2 units at minus 119 to win 1.01. So I got Damian Brown here, 1 unit play straight. And then not Vince Pichel wins in the distance in a 1 unit parlay there. I got that at I want to say minus 350 parlayed with Aldrich there. So yeah, I like Damian Brown here, man. I think he's a tough out for Vince Pichel in his return fight. So, moving on here to the main card, we got Alexander Volkanovski minus 320 taking on Mizuto Hirota plus 260. Now I bet Mizuto Hirota in his last fight, and I do think he's a tough guy. He's an experienced guy, and but that was against Cole Miller, a guy who was really saying a lot of the wrong things you want to be saying before a UFC fight. So that was just more of a fade on Cole Miller than it was confidence on Mizuto Hirota. I think Alexander Volkanovski is a very good fighter, man. I think he's well-rounded. I like the improvements he's made from the beginning of his career. He's got that home country advantage here, and I really love that he's coming back to 145 pounds here. He was super small for 155, and I think it shows a lot that he was able to make a debut at a weight class above where he normally is and go out there and finish an actual 155-pounder. So I like Volkanovski wherever the fight goes. I think he more than likely finishes this fight. Decision wouldn't exactly surprise me, so I'd definitely stay away from that Volkanovski wins in the distance prop. I'd just parlay him straight if I were you. Like him a lot, man, and I also have 2.5 units in total riding on him. So 1.5 units on Ottow Volkanovski to win 1.23, and then I got that 1 unit parlay with Maestro Kim and Volkanovski at plus 127 to win 1.27. So, yeah, man, Volkanovski's, I'd say he's my third most confident pick of the card behind Ottow and somebody a little later who I've got some strong feelings on. So I like Volkanovski, man. I think he's got a bright future in the UFC. So I'll take him, I'll say via a second round. I'll say a second round submission for Volkanovski there. Now, next up, interesting fight, man. I think this is the best fight on the card, man. We got Tim Elliot, who is now up to minus 225, taking on Ben 10 Nguyen, plus 185, man. So, I think this line is really off here. I don't know how you can take a guy with such a strong advantage in one aspect of the fight game and have him at plus 185. I think he's got the vastly better striking than Tim Elliott here. I think he can piece Tim Elliott up on the feet. And a lot of people are banking that Tim Elliott can land those takedowns. And if he can land those takedowns, I think he can probably, for the most part, grind out Ben Nguyen. Now, I don't see him submitting Ben Nguyen, so that gives Ben Nguyen 3 chances on the feet here, the beginning of the first, second, and third. And I'm not exactly banking on the gas tank of Tim Elliott to fail here, but man, he was talking about wanting to go up to 135. He says the 125 cut is extremely tough for him. So what does he do here? He comes in short notice, and he's going to have to make that short notice, another 125-pound cut in a foreign country, man. So I think this might be a tough cut for Tim Elliott. I'm not banking on that, but it's something to think about. That's why I would highly recommend you guys who are solid on Tim Elliott to maybe pump the brakes a little bit. That all being said, I did take the 2-unit shot on Ben Nguyen here. 2 units at plus 175 to win 3.5 units. I like Ben Nguyen here. I think he can piece. I think he can piece Tim Elliott up on the feet. I think there's a lot of undeserved hype on Tim Elliott right now just because of the DJ fight, in which reality he only had one good moment, and then the recent Louis Smolka win. I think that's getting a lot of undeserved hype as well, just because Louis Smolka has some of the worst takedown defense in the UFC, so that made Tim Elliott look more impressive than he actually is. So man, I like Ben 10 here. Not sure if I mentioned Tim Elliott is coming in here on short notice as well. Ben 10 got that Australian home crowd advantage. I think he's worth the shot at the price, man. I think it's very off. I think this should be somewhere around pick'em. If not, Ben 10 should be like a minus 130 favorite here. So I do like the Australian. Once again, man, I like Ben 10 to outstrike Tim Elliott over the course of 3 rounds, or maybe even pick up that late third round finish. We'll see, man. But I recommend a underdog play on Ben 10 there. 2 units is what I got him, plus 175. So like Ben 10. But moving on here, man, we got a fight with violence written all over it, man. We got Jeon Cutelaba, who's all the way up to minus 300, taking on Henrique de Silva, plus 250, also known as Frankenstein, also known as Frank Weiston. Man, I do like Ion Cutelaba in this fight, and when he was all the way down to minus 170, I was considering putting him in parlays, but something scared me away, man. I just feel like both these guys are pretty sloppy light heavyweights here. Ion is a little less sloppy, which is why I'm picking him in the first place. He's also younger, better chin, just more durable, tougher guy, in my opinion, probably more athletic. But it just worries me because both guys are just reckless, and you never know what can happen. Like, if Henrique De Silva goes out there and lands just a bomb that puts Cutelaba down, that wouldn't shock me. If Henrique De Silva can go out there and land takedowns over the course of 3 rounds, that wouldn't surprise me. If he gets a submission off his back, that wouldn't surprise me. There's just a lot of things that wouldn't surprise me here, man. And especially now that Cutelaba's up to minus 300, highly recommend passing on him. And if anything, man, if you're going to bet on this fight at this point with the way the lines are now, I don't fault anybody at all for taking that plus 250 shot on Henrique De Silva, man. So just a big pass for me. But my pick is going to be Ion Cutelaba, and I'll say early second round TKO, but nothing would surprise me here, man. So moving on to a interesting one, man. We got Dan the Hangman Hooker minus 160 taking on Ross the Real Deal Pearson. So I see a lot of people say, and I'm playing devil advocate to myself here. I see a lot of people saying that Dan Hooker, he's coming up from 145. He's going to be the smaller guy here. Ross Pearson fought at 145 pounds too, guys. So I wouldn't be so sure that Pearson's going to have the size here. Dan Hooker is the taller guy with the bigger reach. Ross Pearson obviously is the thicker dude. He's going to have more pop behind his punches here, but I don't see a finish happening in this fight. Honestly, the way I see this fight playing out is I think Dan Hooker is the sharper, younger guy, and I can absolutely see people's perspectives on why they're betting on Dan Hooker. I don't blame you too much, especially now that he's down to minus 160. But man, I see this fight being a back and forth 3-round fight. I think Ross Pearson, he can make fights close. This isn't the first time in recent history that he's fought a younger, sharper striker guy like Chad Laprise, like Paul Felder. He's picked up wins over those two guys, and I did think he won both of those fights, by the way. I know a lot of people thought he lost both those fights, but man, I just think he can make it close. So that all being said, I did take the 1 unit shot on Ross Pearson at plus 155 to win 1.55 units. Man, I see this fight being a split decision, very close. So I took the 1 unit shot on the more experienced guy. I think he can make it very tough for Hooker. Pearson has came through as the dog before against these younger guys. So, man, 1 unit shot. I'm happy with it. I'm expecting it not to cash, but man, in these fights that I think are close, I'm always going to take a guy if he's plus 150 or up. So, and he's won these kind of fights before. So, my official prediction is going to be Ross Pearson via a 29-28 decision. And not only do I have that 1 unit shot on Ross Pearson, I also have the over 2.5 rounds here in a 1 unit parlay with Zach Ottow. Got that at plus 109 to win 1.09 units. So, man, I like the over here. And I like a dog play on Ross Pearson. Even at plus 140 now, I think that may be worth the shot. But no, I wouldn't highly recommend you guys to tail that. That's just for me personally. I think taking 1 unit shots on guys that are plus 150 and above in a fight that I think it's going to be a split decision, I think in the long term that'll be a winning kind of bet there. So I like Ross Pearson, man. So moving on to the co-main event, in which I have some strong thoughts here, man. We got Derek Brunson minus 270 taking on Daniel Kelly plus 230. So I'm all in on Brunson, man. Just going to come out and say it. 5 unit max bet on Derek Brunson. I did manage to pick up a little bit better of a line, minus 230 to win 2.15 units. And I know we're all going to say you're betting against Dan Kelly, the underdog king here. But who has Dan Kelly actually came through as an underdog against? Let's just take a quick history lesson through the career of Dan Kelly here in the UFC. So first, I'll just say the weaknesses of Dan Kelly, in my opinion. So you look at his very first fight in the UFC in the Ultimate Fighter House, took on Sheldon Westcott. Sheldon Westcott was able to take down Dan Kelly and submit him very, very quickly. So the takedown defense. And then you look at the fight against Sam Alvey. He lost. He wasn't able to survive the blitz and the power of Sam Alvey. And man, Derek Brunson has a better blitz / power than Sam Alvey. And he's also got a hell of a lot better wrestling than Sheldon Westcott. I know you want to say that's early on in his career. And I know people want to say Dan Kelly has made improvements. But Dan Kelly is still aged since then. And that knee hasn't gotten any better, man. And another thing I'll say, Dan Kelly fights, his opponents are always one good kick to that knee away from just changing the fight for Dan Kelly. If somebody can just catch him in the knee real good with a nice shot, I don't know how he can recover from that, man. The dude's got one leg, and so the underdog wins, and I'm just all over the place here just because I have all kinds of strong feelings. So we did pull off underdog wins against Luke Zachrich, Pat Walsh, Steve Montgomery, Chris Camozzi, a very old shot Rashad Evans. So none of those guys I take into high consideration in the slightest. His best win, without a doubt, is that Antonio Carlos Jr. Win. But look at those first two rounds against ACJ. He arguably got 10-8 in both those rounds. ACJ was a kid in that fight. Dan Kelly kicked him in the face, broke his nose, and the kid couldn't recover, man. He kind of welted under the pressure there. So, I do think that is his best one, but I don't hold that into the biggest account. And then you look at Derek Brunson. Okay, so a lot of people, I think Derek Brunson gets hated on a little bit too much more than he should be. The dude's very talented. He's athletic, strong, got power behind those punches. So I think so we look at there's been a tale of two Derek Brunsons here. We got Blitz Derek Brunson, who was able to go in there and knock out Ed Herman, knock out Sam Alvey, who beat Dan Kelly, knock out Rowan Carnero, who's a very tough veteran, knock out Uriah Hall, who's always a dangerous fight to anybody. I mean, dude knocked out Gegard Mousasi. He's a tough fight for anybody. Say what you want about Uriah Hall. And then he goes in there against Robert Whitaker. Manages to be the only guy at 185 to hurt Robert Whitaker, and then Robert Whitaker, being the absolute savage he is, was able to knock him out in his home country. And then Derek Brunson comes in a little bit more conservative, fights a little bit differently against Anderson Silva. I thought for sure Derek Brunson won that fight. I thought it was a robbery. But the thing is, he had to be a little conservative there against Anderson Silva, because I think Anderson Silva's still got some skill, and he is the greatest counter striker in UFC history who actually has some power. Now, I don't think he has to worry about the power of Dan Kelly, because I think for the most part the power of Dan Kelly is a non-existent thing. So I think Derek Brunson can absolutely come in here and blitz Dan Kelly. I personally think the blitz works and he knocks him out very early. If it doesn't, I think if Dan Kelly can survive that initial blitz, like I said earlier, the takedown defense, I think Derek Brunson can take down Dan Kelly. So you got a guy that was taken down by Sheldon Westcott versus a guy that was able to take down the Olympian Yoel Romero. So I think people that are pretty much making it a lock that Dan Kelly can stuff the takedowns of Derek Brunson, I think that's a little silly in my opinion. I think he can absolutely take down Dan Kelly here over the course of 3 rounds if the blitz doesn't work. And now I am picking the blitz to be able to work here. So, man, I've rambled a lot, but this is just a very confident play for me, and I have all kinds of thoughts. So I love Derek Brunson here. I think he knocks out Dan Kelly in the first round, but I can absolutely see him winning a wrestling-based decision here. Like I said, 5 units. Brunson minus 230 to win 2.15 units. Let's go. So, yeah, man, like Derek Brunson a lot, and I know you guys are probably going to be disagreeing with me just because of the popularity of Dan Kelly and kind of the cult hero he's become in the MMA community. And hats off to you guys if you've been betting Dan Kelly every one of his fights in the UFC, because if you have been doing that, you'd be a wealthy man. But this is not the spot to do it here, man. This is not it at all. I think Brunson runs through him over the course of 3 rounds or gets that early knockout. But moving on here, man. got a very, very fun main event. We got Derek Black Beast Lewis minus 130 taking on Mark Super Samoan Hunt plus 110. So just like the Jumeau Steele fight here, I was originally picking the opposite guy pre-tape. I thought Mark Hunt, he's got the better striking, the cleaner striking, more experienced striking. He's going to be able to counter Derek Lewis flying in and knock him out. But man, post-tape study, I think Mark Hunt, he's kind of a changed man. I honestly believe that Brock Lesnar kind of changed the guy's life a little bit, gave him a serious ass whooping, gave him a seriously mental ass whooping as well, man. Mark Hunt has not been the same guy mentally thus far. I really hate to call the guy a crybaby, but I really hate the complainer that he's really turned into. It seems like he's just complaining about everything these days. And Derek Lewis, say what you want about him. I mean, I bet against him in his last fight. He does make some mistakes in the octagon, but I think this is a good fight for him, man. And say what you want about him. Dude's a winner. Dude wins fights. Yeah, I want to say he's on like a 5-win streak now. Dude's been winning fights, and he can overcome adversity, just like in his last fight against Travis Brown. He was getting kicked to the body repeatedly, came back, knocked the guy out in the second round. I don't think Travis Brown is a shot horrible fighter like a lot of people do think he is at this point. So, wow, Derek Lewis is on a 5-6 win streak. Wow, pretty impressive for the heavyweight division, man. The dude's a winner. Mark Hunt, dude's got skills with the striking, man, but I think even for heavyweight standards, the guy is a little long in the tooth. He is, 43 years old now. So I think the younger, more powerful, and at this point, better chin, Derek Lewis is going to be able to go out there and knock out Mark Hunt. And it's not even just that makes me pick Derek Lewis here. I think he can land the takedown here, and I think if he can take down Mark Hunt, I think he's got some of the most brutal ground and pound. I think he can pound out Mark Hunt. So, man, with that all being said, I am very confident in this fight to end and knockout either way. I'm not entirely confident in Derek Lewis. I don't have any plays on him or anything. I was thinking about taking one unit on Lewis via KO/TKO, but I just figured I already have 2 plays in this fight, so I'd just leave it at that. I do have 2 units on the under 1.5 rounds at plus 105 to win 2.10, and I do have the won't start round 5 parlayed with Moraga. 1 unit at plus 107 to win 1.07. So I got the won't start round 5, and I also got the under 1.5 rounds here. I'm thinking Derek Lewis knocks him out in the first round, if not early second round. So yeah, man, that is gonna do it for me, guys. I do like this card from a matchup perspective. I think we're gonna see some good shit here, some awesome violence, and there is some good prospects on here, like the Volkanovskis of the world, like the Ben Nguyen's of the world. So yeah, man, awesome card. And thank you guys for watching. I was doing this live. I almost forgot I was doing this live for a second. But you can follow me on Twitter at MMAKelton. I'm down to talk fights with just about anybody. You can follow my bets at MMAKelton on Bet MMA Tips, MMAKelton on Caprotech. And I will give a shout out to UFC Bro Picks. Go check them out on YouTube. I did join their video breakdown for this card last night. Had a lot of fun talking to those guys. Those guys are cool as shit. And they're on Dan Kelly there, so we had a nice little back and forth debate between that Brunson Kelly fight. So definitely recommend going to check out UFC Bro Picks. I was actually their very first guest on that card yesterday. So yeah, man. Anything else to get into with you guys? Nope. That's really it, man. So watching, and above all, enjoy these damn fights.